Welcome to this pre-recorded webinar on the general process for applying for a discretionary grant administered by the Office of Special Education Programs, or OSEP. My name is Amy Bay, a project officer here at OSEP. Next slide. The agenda for this webinar covers 4 overarching topics. First, we will review background information on the agency and the mission and priorities, as well as authorizing statute and regulations that inform the grant-making process. Second, we will cover the elements of the Notice Inviting Applications, or NIA, to which all applicants should pay close attention. Third, we will briefly discuss the application process and provide tips. Lastly, we will cover additional resources that applicants may find helpful in the application process. Next slide. The purpose of this webinar is to increase applicants' awareness and understanding of the requirements and process for submitting an application, as well as provide prospective applicants tips and resources to facilitate the application process. Next slide. Some caveats before we begin. While we summarize in general terms the elements found in most of the NIA's OSEP issues, it is critical that prospective applicants thoroughly read the NIAs for each program to which they intend to apply. In addition, each program will have a recorded webinar that is specific to that NIA. We encourage you to listen to those NIA-specific webinars. Next slide. In this section, we will cover the background information that informs the NIAs and the application process. These will include the Secretary's priorities, OSERS mission statement, OSEP's mission statement, and authorizing legislation and applicable regulations. Next slide. In order to facilitate and support a comprehensive and ambitious education agenda, the Secretary issued 6 priorities and related definitions for use in currently authorized discretionary grant programs or programs that may be authorized in the future. The Secretary may choose to use an entire priority for a grant program or a particular competition, or use one or more of the priority subparts. Next slide. These are 4 through 6 of the Secretary's supplemental priorities. On both this slide and the previous slide, there is a hyperlink in the title to the Federal Register's final priorities and definitions published on December 10th, 2021. You can also search for additional information at ed.gov. Next slide. OSEP is part of the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services, for OSERS. Note the emphasis in the mission statement on providing outcomes and raising expectations for all people with disabilities. This mission drives the NIAs we publish. Next slide. This slide is our OSEP mission statement, which is aligned with the OSERS mission statement, but it's focused on infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities and their families. This mission also drives the NIA we publish. Next slide, please. Legislation and regulations that have a significant impact on the application process in the NIAs we publish. All NIAs must be part of the programs authorized under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. The NIAs must make explicit reference to the specific parts of the law that authorize the work. In addition, the Code of Federal Regulations also catalogs various aspects of the application process, what we refer to as Uniform Guidance, or EDGAR. The links on this slide go to the additional information or statute or to the regulations themselves. Next slide.
In this section, we will cover the elements of the NIAs that are common to all OSEP programs and to which applicants should pay particular attention. Next slide. OSEP offers discretionary grants under different program areas, such as technical assistance and dissemination, technology and accessible instructional materials, personnel development, parent training and information centers, and state personnel development grants. Prospective applicants can search on ed.gov for the grant forecast to get a sense of what OSEP proposes to fund within a federal fiscal year. In each notice, the applicants will find information related to the purpose of the statutorily authorized program and information related to the purpose of the priority. Typically, a brief background on information relevant to the priority is also provided. When reviewing the NIA, applicants should note any priority requirements that need to be addressed that are specifically defined, such as evidence of effectiveness, for example. Next slide. Each NIA has at least one absolute priority that states what the applicants must address to be considered for the grant. It's important that applicants respond to all elements that are being requested in the absolute priority requirements. Applicants need to respond to the absolute priority to be considered eligible to receive an award. If an application is eligible, it will be evaluated based on a set of selection criteria that is also included within the NIA. In some NIAs, in addition to the absolute priority, there may be competitive preference priorities, which are optional for applicants. Applicants that respond to competitive preference priority may receive additional points on their applications. Next slide. Selection criteria. Each NIA will provide the selection criteria that reviewers use in evaluating individual applications. The selection criteria changes for each NIA. Each of the selection criteria have assigned point values. Applicants should carefully review all selection criteria and sub-criteria and make sure to address all in their application. Next slide. Application narrative and budgets. Applicants are strongly encouraged to read the absolute priority and ensure that the application responds to the priority requirements. Applicants are strongly encouraged to organize the application according to the order of the selection criteria, and applicants may also want to consider including the table of contents to direct reviewers to where to find different sections of their application narratives. In addition, the NIA will include information about what additional information should be included in specific sections and appendices. Applications must contain both a budget for each year of the proposed project and a narrative explanation of the budget. NIAs contain information about specific budget requirements, such as restricted indirect cost rates and cost matching. Applicants must include a budget for the project, as well as the budget narrative. Each NIA gives the maximum award amounts for that grant. Applicants should also check the NIA for specific budget information, such as setting aside funds for project meetings, restricted indirect cost rates, or cost matching requirements. Next slide. Assurances and certifications. Lastly, the department requires that application contain certain assurances. Assurances are provided in required forms to be completed and submitted with the application package available in Grants.gov. The non-construction and lobbying assurances inform the department the funding will not be used for construction or lobbying. The General Education Provisions Act, Section 427, requires applicants to include in its application a description of the steps the applicant proposes to take to ensure equitable access to and participation in its federally assisted programs for students, teachers, and other program beneficiaries with special needs. Additional information in how to address GEPAs is provided in NIA. In addition, some NIAs may require additional assurances and certifications. Next slide. Application requirements. In addition to responding to the absolute priority, the NIA also provides information For eligible applicants. Prospective applicants should carefully review the section to ensure they're eligible to apply for the grant opportunity. Applicants with questions about their eligibility should contact the individuals listed as the contact for the NIA. Applicants are also encouraged to follow the instructions for the format of the required project abstract and provide the information requested. Each NIA outlines the maximum award amounts for budget periods. Applicants are reminded that the award cannot exceed the maximum amount and should use that information to construct an appropriate project budget. Applications are due by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Applicants are strongly encouraged to submit applications early to ensure that the application goes through the process without errors that could impact timely submission. Submitting early will get the applicant time to resubmit the application if necessary. NIAs will provide recommended narrative page lengths and formatting. All required appendices should be included. Next slide. Next slide. In this section, we'll cover important elements of the online application process and the different websites involved in the application process. Next slide. Prior to applying, starting on April 4th, 2022, the Integrated Award Environment IEA system will comply with the federal government's requirement to end use of the DUNS number for federal award management. SAM.gov, or the System for Awards Management, is the official site for registering to do business with the federal government. Next slide. SAM registration. Registering in SAM is also required before submitting an application. We strongly encourage you to start this process as soon as possible. The NIA provides additional information on registering in SAM. Next slide. Application submission. The common instructions for applications to the Department of Education's discretionary grant programs apply to all grant competitions in the department. The most recent version of the common instructions for applications to the Department of Education discretionary grant programs at the time of this recording was published on February 13th, 2019. Applicants are strongly encouraged to read those instructions as they work to submit applications. The hyperlink on this page is to the notice published in the Federal Register, but the instructions are also included in all application packages on Grants.gov. Next slide. Unless a prospective applicant is provided with a pre-approved exception, the prospective applicant must submit an application online through Grants.gov, which is the federal government system for submitting applications online. All applicants are encouraged to register early, and information about the registration process is found on the hyperlink to register early on this slide. Applicants needing support in using Grants.gov can follow the link in the last bullet to a number of online trainings available. Grants.gov supports the latest versions of Microsoft Internet Explorer, Mozilla, Firefox, Google Chrome, and Apple Safari. However, these web browsers undergo frequent challenges and updates, so we recommend that applicants have the latest version when using Grants.gov. Legacy versions of web browsers may be functional, but may cause users to experience issues. To register with Grants.gov for the first time, select the registration link in the top right corner of the Grants.gov banner. Passwords are valid for 60 days and will not be valid on the 61st day onward. Grants.gov accounts are automatically deactivated after 365 days of inactivity. That is not logging on for a year. Grants.gov automatically sends 4 separate warning emails, 1 per week for the first 4 weeks immediately preceding the deactivation. If an account is deactivated, users will first need to reset their password. The Applicants tab on the Grants.gov homepage offers a number of resources, including how to apply for grants, tracking application, applicant training, frequently asked questions, and more. Grants.gov supports the latest version of Microsoft Word or Internet Explorer. Next slide. Grants.gov continued. Once a prospective applicant has an account on Grants.gov, they can access the NIA in a full application package. The Grants.gov workspace allows applicants to complete applications offline and upload and submit forms and other documents over a period of time. Once again, we encourage prospective applicants to submit applications early. Applications can only be submitted online. Applications cannot be emailed, and only those applicants granted an exception can submit by other means. Next slide. Grants.gov applicants can apply online using the Workspace tool. Workspace is a shared online environment where members of a grant team may simultaneously access and edit different web forms within an application. For each funding opportunity announcement, you can create individual instances of a workspace. Once a prospective applicant has an account on Grants.gov, they can access the NIA and a full application package. The Grants.gov workspace allows applicants to complete applications offline, upload, and submit forms and other documents over a period of time. Once again, we encourage prospective applicants to submit their applications early. Applications can only be submitted online. Applications cannot be emailed, and only those applicants granted an exception can submit by other means. Users can create different workspaces for each funding opportunity announcement. Next slide. Application submission. Grants.gov generates an automatic acknowledgement when an applicant successfully transmits an application. The acknowledgement contains a Grants.gov tracking number. When the department's G5 system successfully retrieves an application from Grants.gov, a second confirmation is generated. The second confirmation includes the proposal request number or PR award number. This number typically begins with the letter H, followed by the CFDA number and alpha, the last 2 digits of the federal fiscal year, and finally a 4-digit number that is generated in the order in which applications are received. For example, the first application is submitted to the Stepping Up Technology Grant Program in 2022 will receive a PR award number of H327F220001. Next slide. Reasonable accommodations. OSEP recognizes some prospective applicants may have issues that will prevent them from applying to the Grants.gov system. Therefore, each NIA contains information about how to request reasonable accommodations for applying to the grant. Applicants must follow the directions in the NIA, including any deadlines for requesting accommodations. Next.
In this last section, we want to highlight the resources available to applicants and grantees to ensure their knowledge and capacity to apply for grants and be a successful grantee. Next slide. This is a screenshot of a page on the ed.gov website focused on uniform guidance with links to training and resources to assist grantees and applicants understand the requirements under uniform guidance. Next slide. This screenshot links to a number of courses that are available to help applicants and others increase their capacity to manage grants. Next slide. As Carlene previously mentioned, Grants.gov has extensive online training resources, which are available through the link on this slide. Next slide. OSEP is also a resource to answer applicants' questions. The NIA contains information on who to contact if you have any questions related to the NIA. If you have additional questions after viewing the competition-specific webinar, we encourage you to contact the individual listed in the NIA. Next slide. Thank you for your time and attention, and best wishes as you navigate the process of applying for an OSEP grant.